How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another Talking About Badass Bands, and today we're going to be talking about one of the best punk rock bands that's ever been formed, and today we're going to be talking about the Misfits. Now, the Misfits formed in the 70s with Glenn Danzig and Jerry only, and they made several albums, several lineup changes over the years, different guitar players, singers, drummers, whole nine yards. But today I'm going to be talking about their first three records with Glenn Danzig, released in the late 70s and 80s. So yeah, let's get started. So the first record I have here is Static Age. Now, what's funny about Static Age is that this Static Age was actually released in the 90s, but it was recorded in the 70s, but it wasn't released fully until like 1996 when the Misfits got back together. But this was the first album they ever recorded, and it sounds great. It's very blues influenced, and that's what's great about the Misfits. They have an old 50s, 60s rock and roll and a huge blues influence in their music. So yeah, this record's great. There's great sing along songs, kind of dark, dirty sounding songs, really raw guitar tone, great bass playing by Jerry Only. He's a great bass player in my opinion. Glenn Danzig is an outstanding singer. He's one of my favorite singers, and a very big influence on me as a songwriter and as a singer. But this is a great record, and this is the Misfits album that I think everyone should start with because it's very Ramonesy, very bluesy, um, very old school rock and roll, and it's just a great album, and it's fun to listen to, and it's got a lot of great songs on it. So definitely check it out, Static Age. Now, this was the first officially released album that the Misfits put out in 1982, and this is Walk Among Us. Now, what actually happened after Static Age didn't get released, the Misfits put out several EPs and singles, and they were recording an album in 1980, I believe, called 12 Hits from Hell. And that album ended up not going, the album was completed, but it didn't go released until much later, just like Static Age. But this was the first album that the Misfits actually released. This was released in 1982. This is the first album with Doyle on guitar. My man Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, man, was badass guitar player. He's a great guitar player. It's really just that fast. Johnny Ramone, James Hetfield style. Doyle, I think, is faster, just the fastest dude to do that, man. He's got such a buzzsaw, dirty, nasty sounding guitar tone. It's awesome. It's catchy. It's sing along. Still very blues influenced, very 50s, 60s rock and roll, rockabilly influence. It's a great album, and I think my favorite song on here is definitely Hate Breeders and I Turned Into a Martian. These are great classic songs, and it's a great record. This is probably the Misfits album that is like the definitive. Everyone knows this record. This is the Misfits album that everybody knows and that everyone talks about. So yeah, it's a great album. Definitely check it out. Walk Among Us. And now, I've talked about this record before. This was released in 1983. This is a very underrated Misfits album, in my opinion. It's the last one they recorded with Glenn after the Misfits broke up in the early 80s, and then Glenn went on to form Sam Hain and then eventually his own band Danzig. But this was the last album that he recorded with Doyle and Jerry, and Robo plays drums on this. And I forgot to mention on Walk Among Us, Arthur Googie actually plays drums on that, and he's actually a really great drummer. It's a very great rhythm sound, and he's a great drummer. But Robo is an awesome drummer as well. He was the drummer for Black Flag for a while, and then he joined the Misfits in the early 80s. But this is the album Earth AD, Wolf's Blood. Now, this is a Misfits album that's really heavy. It's one of their heavier albums. It's a little bit more metal, a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more dirty sounding, but it still has great songs on it. Green Hell, the title track, Devil Lock, Death Comes Ripping, Blood Feast, We Bite, awesome stuff. Die Die My Darling, of course, great songs. And this is a really heavy sounding album, and what's cool about the Misfits is that all their albums sound different. You got the more bluesy influenced Ramones stuff, you got the more metal stuff, he got all kinds of stuff, 50s doo-wop sounding songs, And this album's pretty much their fastest, most heavy, aggressive album. And Doyle plays guitar on this once again. Great sounding guitar tone. Really dirty, very raw recording. It's totally punk. It's totally evil sounding. It's a great record, but it's really underrated. I feel like compared to the other ones. But it's a good album, really good, really fun to listen to. It's super short, only like 20 minutes long. If you can get your hands on it for a few bucks, definitely pick it up. Great album, Earth AD. All right, that's it for the Misfits right now, but I'm definitely going to be making a Misfits Part 2 and a Part 3. In Misfits Part 2, I definitely want to talk about Michael Graves, because I feel like the Michael Graves era Misfits were definitely a different sounding band altogether. It was like totally, the songwriting was insanely, just insanely well. It was well written, totally great. It was just two great records. Those two albums that they put out with Michael Graves were awesome. Those two albums are American Psycho and Famous Monsters. I definitely want to talk about those. I think those are great records. And then in Part 3, I want to talk about Jerry Only's iteration of the Misfits, because after Michael Graves left and Doyle left, Jerry took over lead vocals as well as playing bass. So I definitely want to talk about those records. And pretty soon I'd love to talk about Sam Hain, Danzig, Doyle, all those bands. But I want to tell you about some Danzig albums from the Misfits that I think that if you're just trying to get an overall like Misfits sound, like that, all their different little eras with Danzig, I'd say get Collection 1, because it has all the old, singles, and it has some stuff off of Walk Among Us, it has some stuff off Earth AD. Collection 2, it has a lot of the earlier singles, like, it has Last Caress, it has Attitude, Bullet. I think Bullet's on the Collection 1, but doesn't matter. But get those. Legacy Brutality sounds pretty good. Get the Halloween single if you really want to hear that song. Halloween's a great song. But yeah, pretty soon you'll hear me talk about later Misfits records. Jerry's Misfits records are awesome too. Project 1950, Devil's Reign, Friday the 13th. Definitely want to get into those albums. So if you get a chance, check out these 3 albums: Static Gauge, Walk Among Us, and Earth AD. I think you have a blast with them. That's it for the Misfits right now, guys. Tune in next time, and we're going to do Misfits Part 2. Thank you, guys.